United States President Donald Trump is breaking off all trade negotiations with Canada and declaring economic war on the neighboring country. The United States President stated that he is ending all trade negotiations with Canada starting today because of its digital services tax, and that he will announce new tariffs for Canada within the next 7 days. This means that the brief pause in the trade war between the United States and Canada has been broken, and both sides are once again entering a period of trade attacks. Let's discuss together in this episode what this means and where it will lead. My name is Alexis Pecci. Let's go through everything step by step. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like the video, leave any comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pecci News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So on Friday evening, Donald Trump made a rather loud statement about the relationship between the United States and Canada. We have just been informed that Canada, a country that is very difficult to trade with, has just announced the introduction of a digital services tax for our American tech companies, which is a direct and blatant attack on our country. The decision to halt all trade negotiations was made after Canada refused to postpone the introduction of the tax for 30 days while the two countries negotiate a trade agreement. This was stated by the director of the White House National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett. Here is his quote. "They are taxing American companies that don't even necessarily have a presence in Canada. This tax is almost criminal. They'll have to remove it, and I think they understand that." Well, and this once again confirms the point that many economists have talked about. And I talked about this many weeks ago. Donald Trump's whole idea is failing. Look at what's happening. In March of this year, Trump announced trade tariffs against almost every country in the world except Russia. Of course, Trump decided not to hit there because that would disrupt their negotiations on Ukraine, which, by the way, led to nothing. Already in April, Trump announced a pause in his own trade tariffs and assured everyone that he was giving all countries 90 days to conclude trade agreements with the United States. Even then, economists were shouting at the top of their lungs, "This is unrealistic. There won't be any trade deals even after 90 days." But Donald Trump came out to the Republicans on April 8th and rudely, quite dismissively said, "Yeah, listen. Leaders of many countries lined up and were ready to kiss the American president's ass just to sign a trade agreement." This isn't my imagination. This is a quote from Donald Trump. But here's the thing. The deadline set by Donald Trump is July 9th, and there are still no deals. And apparently no one is kissing his ass after all. Let me remind you what Donald Trump said on April 8th.
"And don't let politicians go around telling you fairy tales. Because these countries, I'm telling you for sure, these countries are calling and are ready to kiss Trump's feet. Please, sir, let's make a deal. I'm ready for anything. Anything, sir." And then some rebellious Republican comes out who just wants to get some attention and says, "I think Congress should take over the negotiations." Yeah, you don't know how to negotiate the way I do, right? If Congress takes everything into its own hands, goodbye, America, they'll sell everything.
Completely. Today,
I saw how several
congressmen said, "We
believe that we should participate in tariff
negotiations." Here,
That's just what I needed. Someone teaching me how to negotiate. Let me put it this way. The happiest people in the world would be the Chinese. Because with advisors like that, they wouldn't be paying 104% duty. On the contrary, we'd be paying them 104%. That's the whole point. These guys, we need to be careful. And even a hint of such a story already harms the negotiations, if the opposing side sees even a note about it. That's it. Our position weakens, and fake news is only too happy to blow it out of proportion, even if the idea itself has no chance. That's why we have to stick together.
But let's get back to Canada. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Trump had previously agreed to reach a new economic and military agreement by July 16th, under which Canada hoped that Trump would lift tariffs from the country. "We will continue to conduct these difficult negotiations in the interests of Canadians," said Carney after Trump published this post, in which he said, "That's it, there will be no negotiations." And just recently, Donald Trump once again emphasized his position. And here is his quote. "We have all the cards in our hands. We have every single card. We don't want to do anything bad, but economically we have such power over Canada, it would prefer that we don't use it. They do most of their business with us, and when you have circumstances like that, you treat people better. At the same time, one of the White House officials said that the president was justifiably upset. Quote, "We were negotiating with Canada to get them to lower their trade barriers, and then they went and put up completely new ones." So that obviously doesn't help their case. But of course, it's worth clarifying the whole situation here. Canada has been working on a digital services tax law since 2021. The process included extensive public consultations before it came into effect more than a year ago. The law, which sets a 3% tax for large foreign and domestic digital companies that earn more than 20 million Canadian dollars a year, comes into effect today, June 28th. It applies to certain Canadian profits that companies earn from online advertising, social networks, online marketplaces, and the sale and licensing of user data. According to the Computer and Communications Industry Association, the first payments must be made on Monday, but since this bill is retroactive, American companies like Meta could face a bill of up to $3 billion. Earlier this week, a Canadian official said that 2 meetings are planned with American officials to discuss this deal. And as of Saturday, there were no announcements planned regarding the tax. Trump's post appeared as Corney was meeting with his Canada-United States Relations Counsel. Corney, who regularly communicates with Trump, said that he had not spoken with Trump. On Friday, his office did not receive any warning that the president was going to cancel the trade talks. And accordingly, everything turned out to be unclear again. That is just a public statement, but no actual contact is happening. At the same time, members of the United States Congress claim that about 90% of the taxes that Canada will collect under the Digital Services Tax Law will come specifically from American companies. Well, they say this law was created specifically against American companies. And in Congress, they already stated this week that if Canada decides to introduce this unprecedented retroactive tax, it will create a terrible precedent that will have long-term consequences for global tax and trade practices. Last week, Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne stated that Canada is not going to suspend the tax, despite pressure from the United States Congress, business circles, and industries. He noted that this issue has actually been discussed since 2021, and it's not something new. Therefore, the White House should have known about such a decision by Canada. Next, I will quote the Minister of Finance of Canada. Parliament voted for this, so we continue to implement these decisions. We had rather long, extensive discussions at the summit about the various tax regimes you can find in different parts of the world. The digital services tax is not unique to Canada. By the way, let's look at this in context. That's not the main point. The main point is all the other types of taxes that you have all over the world. Well, you know, people can have different opinions about this kind of tax, and in some ways the Americans' outrage is justified. But still, in the context of the trade agreement between the United States and Canada, it looks rather strange. When the President of the United States, who actually started this whole trade war, can negotiate so impulsively, but knowing in advance that such a tax has been in preparation for several years, it was probably necessary to factor this into the negotiation position much earlier, rather than when the deadline for signing the trade agreement is already approaching. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this channel, you can do so financially with any donation. You can use the links and payment details in the description of this video or the QR code on your screen. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.